and welcome to this new video for my channel, The Mental Traveler. I'm Caro Herrera and today I'm going to be reviewing a book called A Moveable Feast. It was written by Ernest Hemingway and published in 1964, some years after his death. A Moveable Feast is Hemingway's memories from when he was a young struggling writer in Paris during the 20s. Before I begin though, let me just say that this will be a spoiler-free video, so you can sit back and enjoy. When I was 12, I fell in love with the city of Paris after I watched The Phantom of the Opera, and when I was 14, I became a bibliophile, instantly drawn to English classics. So I remember reading Ernest Hemingway back in middle school when I was around 14, 15, or 16. That novel was Farewell to Worms, and I recall vaguely some things about it. But that was many years ago, and I haven't read any other book by this author until now. I do have many of his works on my to-read list, but for one reason or another, I never seem to actually pick up one of his novels. So that means that I'm not actually that knowledgeable about Ernest Hemingway, the novelist, but I am aware of his strong personality, his ideas, and now I know what he was like reminiscing about his past. Anyways, the first time I heard about A Moveable Feast must have been when I was watching Midnight in Paris, and that's because the plot of the movie deals a lot with Ernest Hemingway, who was living in Paris in the 20s, and Corey Stoll just gives an amazing performance of Hemingway. The real reason though I wanted to read A Moveable Feast was because after I came back from my second trip to Paris in the fall of 2018, I've been considering either moving there soon or just visiting it again. I'm kind of obsessed with Paris right now because of The Hunchback of Notre Dame and other things, and I've started taking French lessons as well. But I am an aspiring writer and a history lover, so I really wanted to get Ernest Hemingway's interpretations of what it was like to be an aspiring writer in that beautiful, magical city in a fantastic period in time, the Roaring 20s. A Moveable Feast is set during the years of 1921 to 1926, and as I've mentioned, we get a very accurate picture of what it must have been like to live in this city during the 20s. But not only to live there, but to live it in a very particular point in history, meaning writers, bohemians, painters, and other artists. These people belong to the famous Lost Generation, those who came of age during World War I, which had ended just a few years prior to the start of A Moveable Feast. And in a way, I feel that yes, of course, this is Hemingway's love letter to Paris, even though he stresses more than once that it had its complications. But I also feel that it's an ode to youth, to creativity, to pursuing your dreams, and so much more. In the pages of this book, we get a personal perspective of what famous writers such as F. Scott Fitzgerald, James Joyce, and Gertrude Stein were like. And these are just a few to begin with. We also meet up with other famous historical figures such as Zelda Fitzgerald, Fort Maddox Ford, Ezra Pound, and so many others. I give A Moveable Feast a 5 out of 5 stars review, and I highly recommend it. I totally loved it. I really want to read one of Hemingway's novels now to see how his writing style changes between writing his memoirs and writing a novel. But yeah, I really enjoyed A Moveable Feast, and it was everything that I thought it would be. But yeah, why did I love it so much? These are some of the reasons. Despite the fact that I had an overall idea of what the author's life was like, I really liked him here because I could sympathize with him in some things. For example, we both lived in Toronto for a time, both were/are journalists, but we both prefer writing literature to journalism. Or at least that's the impression that I'm left with of him. And as an aspiring writer myself, I'm thankful for the writing dilemma and tips he gives throughout the book regarding facts versus fiction. It was also really cool to learn what Ernest Hemingway thought of famous writers like Dostoevsky and D.H. Lawrence, as well as of celebrated classics such as War and Peace and The Great Gatsby. And talking about books, it was cool to learn that Hemingway met Out of Africa's author Isaac Dinenson, and that he thought her book was like the best novel written about that continent, seeing as he himself also wrote stories set there, inspired by Simon Keeney, I think. It was also fascinating to learn that Hemingway was friends with Sylvia Beach, the founder of the famous bookstore Shakespeare & Co., which is my favorite bookshop ever, and it was beautiful to read about the friendship between Beach and Hemingway. It was also very cute and even romantic to read the bits where Hemingway recommends where one could buy English books in Paris almost 100 years ago. And it's very soothing to imagine him walking beside the riverbank, taking in the magic of the city as he thinks of his writing and of the fact that he was alive. Also, since I'm mentioning the charms of Paris, this book does indeed present Paris as I imagined it must have been like back in the 20s. An enchanting place, a city of dreams, a bohemian paradise. I agree with the preface of the book that says that Paris was a city worthy of Hemingway's dreams and whims, but that it was also a place filled with created during the space between the two world wars. Finally, in Hemingway's own words, he was very poor during this particular period that he lived in Paris, but he was also very happy. And he says something beautiful that I am certain it's true and makes me want to try it out for myself even more. and that is the following. He writes something like, "If you were lucky enough to live in Paris in your youth, then it will always stay with you, for it is a movable feast." Isn't that a wonderful, comforting thought to someone who's already in love with this city? It reminds me of something I think I read somewhere long ago about how everything is alright if you just recall that Paris exists at this very moment. For the moment, though, I believe that this is all I have to say about A Moveable Feast. Thank you so much for watching my review of it. Please let me know if you enjoyed it or not, as well as what are your own thoughts about this book, and of Hemingway himself, and of his other works. In the description box below, you can find a link to the Goodreads page for A Moveable Feast. Anyways, I'm Caro Herrera, the Mental Traveler, and I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. I'll be seeing you soon. Au revoir!